Well, it didn't take that long, but the NHL playoffs have been taken over with some controversy. We got fan bases feeling like they've got cheated by the refs. You have game-deciding calls going to the league and potentially altering the entire outcome of a series. We've had game-changing hits, greasy sucker punches, players calling out their teammates, and entire teams getting swept. The chaos has reached another level here, so let's break down everything that happened in part 4 of our round 1 recap. Let's start with Game 4 between Carolina and Ottawa. We are on the verge of a sweep here, ladies and gentlemen. The Sens are absolutely in one, and the worst part is that they're missing Jake Sanderson. He's out with a concussion for Game 4. Taylor Hall is public enemy number 1 heading into this game after he went shoulder to the chindonesia of Sanderson. So there is some bad blood brewing here. Now, as this series has been, the Tendies were putting on a show once again through the first period, but this gets cranked up to a whole other level here midway through the second. Puck rims around the boards. Nikishin has the puck, loses it in his feet, and look at Clevin here. Heat-seeking missile northbound on a southbound freeway. Boom! He levels Nikishin. It looks like he's back to learning his ABCs after that hit, and just chaos ensues. Svechnikov jumps Clevin. He's feeding him rights while he's on the ground. Meanwhile, Nikishin had to be helped off the ice. Sucks to see a guy get hurt. You could argue it was a tad bit late, but I think overall it's a clean hit. They don't call any penalties on the play except for the one on Svechnikov for jumping Clevin. Now, after this, the temperature of this game went to a whole other level. On the next face-off, there's a scrum that ensues at center ice, and look at this. Ridley Gregg with a scumbag move uppercuts Walker while he's in a headlock. Doesn't even suspect it. That drives Rod Brindamore absolutely insane. He has a nice, calm, cool, and civilized conversation with the ref. Tensions are hot. The first goal seems monumental in this game, and of course, it is the most hated man in Ottawa to do it. Taylor Hall, who's having one hell of a series, sends a reminder to Allmark to close his damn legs. Carolina gets goal number 1. Now, the Sens' power play was so bad in this series. I can't even begin to explain to you how embarrassing it was, but we talked about it in Game 3, how Carolina was just stifling Ottawa's power play on entries and in the zone. They had 9 power plays in this game. 9. They were bound to make good on one, so Stützle gets a one-timer. It goes off of Batherson and in. Ben Batherson and beyond, ladies and gentlemen. He's the only guy scoring in this series. Sens tied up to go into the third. Special teams, though, is still the story of all of this because Carolina goes on the peeper halfway through the third. And how about this bounce? Backboards right to the stanky leg. Stankoven again puts one into the back of the net. He and Taylor Hall have just been lights out in this series. And now the Sens only have 10 minutes to tie the game against a Hurricane team that has just smothered them completely. Carolina would get 2 empty netters. Ottawa scored with a late goal to get their fans' hopes up, but they ultimately fall short as Carolina wins 4-2 to complete the sweep of Ottawa. Now, there wasn't a single second in this series where the Ottawa Senators had the lead. They were constantly playing from behind. Yeah, some balances and other things didn't go their way, but they were 1 for 21 on the power play. That is just awful. I don't even know if anyone's ever done that. Everyone, including myself, believe that the Senators were a much better team than the standings suggested. They sure as hell made me look like a complete asshat in this series, thinking that they could possibly upset Carolina, but the Hurricane structure, specifically when defending 5-on-5 and, of course, on the penalty kill, was just dominant. As for what is next for the Senators, who knows? Stützle and Tkachuk combined for 0 goals in this entire series. That's no bueno. There's also all kinds of rumors about the future of Brady Tkachuk in Ottawa, but either way, it's time to dust off the golf clubs and make their way down to Cancun because the Senators are officially eliminated. Now we go to Game 4 between the Minnesota Wild and the Dallas Stars. The Wild have had 0 answer for Dallas's power play in this series. They're clicking at 48% right now. We said this would be an issue for Minnesota in this series in our preview, and they've been torching them on entries with the power play the last few games, but now we see them pick apart the Wild in the zone with their structure. So with the Wild playing a diamond and having the tendency to get aggressive up high, the Stars can expose that last defender with a down low and a cross play. So watch the manipulation of Rantanen here. He's going to crawl down low initially to sag the Wild killers, but what he wants wants to do is get the entire unit to shift up just enough so that he can isolate that last defender and make it a 2v1. So he's going to slowly shift high, and as soon as he sees the whole structure shift upwards to get the low 2v1, they pull the trigger. Duchesne decides to go for the stuff play, but Robertson jumps all over the rebound as Dallas still outmans Minnesota in front, and he's got his 4th straight goal in as many games. This series, though, is blow for blow, and one man who stepped up their game for Minnesota is Brock Faber. He's the other Brock star. He throws one on net from range, and Miro Heiskanen gives him some help and knees it in. There you go. He owes Ottinger a beer after that one. So now we're all tied at 1. We're in the final minute of the second, and it's time to go back to the drawing board here for the Wild PK. So now with Dallas keeping the puck low, look at how hyper-aware the far side forward is of the cross-crease threat to avoid that play entirely. But because they collapse so much, that leaves this lane wide open. Heiskanen goes down Broadway, and it's 2-1 Stars. Their power play is now fully in the heads of Minnesota. Now down 2-1 going into the third, 5 minutes left. They need a Minnesota Miracle man. Marcus Foligno says, I'm the guy that's going to do it. He's just going to scooch by Andre here over top of him and bats the puck in to send this game to OT for the second game in a row. From this point, the man on the mission here was Matt Boldy. Boldyhan himself says he's just going to turn into Kylian Mbappe and kicks this puck into the goal. Stripe says, no way, pal. Wrong sport. That doesn't count. So Boldy decides to use his stick next instead. Dying seconds of the OT. Spurgeon throws it on net. It's going 3 feet wide. And Boldy is today's Tippy Longstock in front. What a redirection to win the game. And this series is all tied at 2s. Now from there, we go to another do or die situation in the Flyers and Penguins Game 4. Pittsburgh is on the verge of getting swept. The big story for the Penguins in this one is that they decided to start Artur Shilovs over Stuart Skinner. It's a bold strategy, Cotton. We're going to see if it pays off. Pittsburgh, though, is also banking on the fact that when their back is against the wall, Sid the middle-aged man is going to do everything he can to keep the dream alive. They get a power play later in the first. Sid snaps it back to Carlson, and this must be a set play that they've been looking at for a while here. Because Philly is playing an aggressive diamond, if Pittsburgh wins the draw clean like this, they know that the center is going to flex out as fast as possible to challenge that point shot. So Sid, once he wins the draw, is just going to subtly drift high to the top of the circle, right in that soft spot in the middle of Philly's diamond. He wastes no time with the delivery, no dust off whatsoever. One knee for the hockey card, blows it by Vladar. The captain sets the tone. Darth Vladar has been a great story for Philly, but then we see a little bit of a hiccup here at the beginning of the second. He goes to play the puck only to deliver a fresh pizza right to Raquel. That is ugly. Philly is now down by 2. They need a response, and they get one from Denver Barkley. He gets one at the end of the second to cut the lead to 1. But this is Sid the middle-aged man we're talking about here. There's no way that if he goes out, it's going to be in a sweep against Philly in Philly. So he starts busting out all the stops. Look at this puck stuck on the wall. He's going to use those flippers to dig the puck out. He wins possession. He still can't use his stick to pass it. So he's just going to kick it over to Letang and watch him just drive right to the net to push back Philly's D and clear the lane for Letang to step in with the cannon. That is vintage Crosby in a nutshell. Elite skill met with elite will. The Flyers would get one more to make things interesting, but Pittsburgh hangs on till the end, and Sid is doing everything, including taking a run at Sanheim, who's been pissing him off all series. That sparks a scrum at the end of the game where Brian Rust takes a fistful of Porter Martone's hair and tries to rip it out of his scalp. This one's going back to Pittsburgh as their captain drags them into the fight to stay alive for at least one more game. Next, we have Buffalo versus Boston, Game 4 at TD Garden, in which you look at that. The Blade Gang is still there. They have become the symbol of hope and prosperity for Buffalo. They set the tone in this series, beating the shit out of a Cam Neely UFC dummy, and now they're just fully committed to the bit by bringing the vibes to an all-time high for Buffalo in every single game. And it's probably why the Sabres come out of the gate firing. They took it to Boston with 3 goals in the first 10 minutes of this one. Buffalo was just all over them, causing mistakes left, right, and center for Boston. Buffalo would get another one near the end of the first, and in all honesty, the game was pretty much over at this point. The most notable part, though, is that they keep Swayman in there until early in the third period or after goal number 5. Then they pull him, and he just starts giving it to the bench. He is the entire bench to wake up and get going here because the overall effort in this game from the Bruins was the worst that I've seen from them in a long time. I would describe it as Maple Leaf-esque, if you ask me, and that is no bueno. The final score ends up being 6-1, an absolute spanking by Buffalo, and afterwards Charlie McAvoy said everyone should be embarrassed about what just happened. Now Boston has to go back into the rowdiest sports town in the world right now and try to bring the series back home. Now, the biggest thing sticking out to me tactically is just the speed of the forecheck for Buffalo against Boston's D. The Bruins D corps in this series have really struggled to make a play under pressure. We dove into those issues in our Game 1 breakdown, and it was pretty evident when they blew that Game 1. But even in this game, Buffalo's speed got to them quick. Their F3s and Ds were reading off of each other so well when stepping up to pinch and keep the pressure on Boston's wingers. And honestly, Boston just doesn't have the answer right now. And if they don't find one, there's a good chance that the Sabres close out this series. Speaking of closing out series, the Avalanche have the opportunity to do so against the LA Kings. Scoring has not been running wild in this series, and one reason why is special teams. The Avs power play has been so bad all season. It has been the bottom of the barrel of the league. But then the man who's the Rocket Richard winner, he's been quiet in this series for his standards. Nathan MacKinnon takes a 1T blast to put him up by 1. Then Makar starts dancing, and whenever that's the case, it is not a good sign for the opposing team. He walks in from the blue line and says, "How do you like them apples?" Scores a goal. The Avs' best players are leading from the front. And even though LA would get one late in the second to make this a 1-goal game, good teams just find a way to bury their opponent when they smell blood. Avs score 3 in the third, and you see Kopitar slowly realizing that this will be the last time he plays in an NHL game. It's an era over. One of the best two-way forwards of this era. 2 Stanley Cups, the ultimate leader. He hangs them up and shakes hands with the Avs before permanently hitting the beaches of Cabo and enjoying retirement. The series was never really close, and no one expected it to be. And when you look at the numbers, the Kings actually had more ozone possession than Colorado, but the Avs, they dominated the rush game and were able to generate more slot shots because of it. I also think an underrated aspect of Colorado's game is how they defend. LA defended well in this series, but Colorado defended better. And if the Kings were going to have any chance, they needed to win that game 2 in overtime, plant the seed of doubt. But that didn't happen, and now it is yet another first-round exit for the LA Kings. And so we jump to a series that is way closer. Game 4 between the Habs and Lightning. This series cannot get more intense. Let's go halfway through the second here where we're still tied at zeros. Quick breakout from Montreal leads to a semi-break to Bolduc. He comes charging in. Vasilevsky tries to get cheeky and go for the poke check. He gets it, but it bounces off of Bolduc and into the net. How about that for some luck? Bell Center is rocking at this point. Now in the playoffs, it's all about chess matches and adjustments, and we see one on the fly here from one of the game's best goal scorers in Cole Caulfield on the power play. Initially, look at how the Habs set up in this 1-3-1 formation with Caulfield on the goal line. Now, Suzuki is on the half wall here with time and space, and you can see Tampa and their killers start to hyper-focus on Slavkovsky in the bumper as the main threat. But then Caulfield makes a heads-up play to vacate the goal line and park himself in front of the net to become an extra option for the backdoor feed. Another detail that makes him look wicked smart is recognizing that Lilleberg, the Tampa defenseman, is a left-handed shot. So naturally, that lane is open for Caulfield to park himself in front. Suzuki zips the pass onto his stick before Moser can tie him up, and just like that, it is 2-0 Habs. They got all the momentum, the building is rocking, and near the end of the second, Slavkovsky starts galloping into the middle. Get that chin up, pal. Boom. Absolutely decked by Crozier, as clean as you can get. He levels Slavkovsky. He was shaken up, and from that point, it just seemed like the mojo started to tip into Tampa's favor. Jake Guentzel, with 40 seconds left in the second, scores to bring this within 1, and then the ref controversy gets going. So early in the third, Kapanen is going to take a high sticking penalty, but Habs fans felt that the ref's arm went up late and that James went for the dive. Now listen, it seems like everyone these days is just snapping the head back no matter what. Even if they see or feel a stick and it doesn't quite catch them, they just do it anyways because they can draw a penalty. It is clear that the ref is kind of just reacting to the reaction of the player, which is why he throws his hands up and why so many players do it. It happens so fast, so it's a lot easier to sit here and judge, but it doesn't really matter because Montreal goes to the box and Tampa makes them pay right away. Brandon Hagel, this guy is an absolute gamer. He's been the MVP of this series, and when you're hot, you are hot, because late in the third, third. Kucherov fires it on net, and it hits Hagel by accident and bounces in. That is the game winner, and a lot of Montreal fans were just ticked off at the officiating of this game. But here's the thing. They had a power play near the end of this one, too, to tie it up, but they didn't convert. And I think you can argue some calls in favor of Montreal as well, but it's the Stripes. It's the NHL playoffs. You're going to have a couple controversial games like we see coming up. And with the series being this tight, I feel like we're going to get more of it. We're all tied at 2s heading back to Tampa. And so we go to game 4 between the Oilers and the Ducks. The big news in this game is that the Oilers are starting Shanghai Jari. Yes, Tristan Jari gets the nod after the Oilers have let in 16 goals in their first 3 games. Not really Ingram's fault, but switching things up is what they're going to decide to do. So Edmonton needs to play with desperation, and they do early. 38 seconds in, Kapanen jams in the loose puck. That's his 4th of the playoffs, and shortly after, their peeper gets to work. Nugent Hopkins logs in for a goal. Oilers are up 2-0 after 20. Now, the best power play unit of these playoffs so far has actually been the Anaheim Ducks. They're clicking at 50%. That's half. Basically a coin toss if they get a power play, and first is Cutter Gauthier, the most loved man in Philadelphia, says, "Don't give me all that space, fellas. I'm just going to take advantage." He steps in and rips it short side. Oilers can't stop that. Then they get themselves into more penalty trouble, and like we've said tons of times on this channel, the best power plays are ones that have movement. We saw in the first goal that they're in the 1-3-1, and then on this power play, they start off in the spread, so no one is in the middle of the ice initially, and it's a good old-fashioned give and go. Granlund down low, takes off to the middle, catch, release, tie game at the end of 2. So now, the Oilers say, anything you can do, I can do better. Ivan Bouchard, halfway through the third on the power play, steps in, goes so far down, it is borderline offensive. The Oilers have a lead yet again, but it's the same issues that come back to haunt them. Net front defense has been killer, and it is the 4th line shift from Anaheim. Jeffrey Veal-Chops is coming in clutch. He's the Timu Solani for the Ducks right now. Wallman can't box him out. He gets to the loose puck, and the Ducks tie the game again. This one is going to overtime for the first time this series, and then we get potentially the game-changing controversial call of these playoffs. Poehling tries to center this puck. It bounces off the skate through Jari, and is it in? Is it in? No one can tell if it's in. The Ducks are celebrating. What's going on here? There's like 60 seconds that goes by, and there's no call on the play. There's no initial call. The refs come together, discuss it, and then after their little powwow, they decide it's a goal on the ice. Now, that's very important because whatever the call is on the ice, there has to be enough evidence to overturn it. The issue is there's no ref even close to the vicinity of this puck when it goes in. This ref in the corner is the closest. He skates towards the net. He puts his hands up. He's like, I don't know. The linesmen, they're all the way in the neutral zone. So that means that they got to call Gary. They go to a video review, and there's no angle that shows the puck completely crossed or didn't cross the goal line. But because it was called a goal on the ice, it was ruled a good goal. So they can't overturn it. Anaheim wins in overtime, and they put the Oilers on the brink of elimination. Now, I think the biggest gripe that everyone had with this is the length of time that the refs took to decide whether or not it was a goal after the play happened. Now, in my opinion, I think the puck is in the net. It's pretty obvious when you kind of look at the replay that it did cross the goal line, but you can't say it definitively. There's no actual angle, and because the call on the ice is a goal, it ultimately works against Edmonton in this decision. Either way, the puck doesn't lie, and really the controversy doesn't matter because the Anaheim Ducks have put McDavid and the Oilers on the brink, and it is clear that maybe him and Draisaitl are dealing with something, but overall they just have not been good enough, and now they are in trouble. So what did you think of the call and the games? What pissed you off? Who surprised you? Let us know in the comments down below. And as always, we're covering every game of the NHL Stanley Cup playoffs. So if you don't want to miss a thing, make sure you subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so that you are up to date on all things hockey.